Tonight, on the world's most amazing videos, a rescue cable snaps, sending a pair of helpless firefighters plummeting down a mountain. Plus, a speedboat rockets out of the water and into a high-voltage power line. And a torpedo hits its target, blowing a Navy destroyer sky high. Plus, it's the hottest act in town when a dancer's hair is set ablaze. And a mysterious cloud engulfs an entire city, plunging it into total darkness. These are the incredible true life stories of people who face their most desperate hour and live to tell about it. Everything you are about to see is real. Real people, real danger, real excitement. Get ready to experience the thrill of a lifetime. You are about to witness the world's most amazing videos.
Chandler, Arizona. The Sprite Winter Nationals are in full swing. These high-powered hydro boats reach speeds of up to 165 miles an hour. Racer Sunny Moon is in the black boat. With a powerful burst of speed, they're off. Sunny falls behind, so he accelerates to full power. But it's too little, too late, and he loses the race. Then there's a bigger problem. Sunny's throttle is jammed. Now he's on a collision course with disaster. Watch again. Sunny desperately tries to kill the engine, but it's no good. His boat becomes airborne, slams into a high-voltage power line, and explodes in midair. With 75,000 volts coursing through the craft, there is little hope that Sunny has survived. But incredibly, he was able to bail out just before the crash.
I've got to save my life. I'm freaking out. I've got to get out of this boat. So I threw myself with all my might against the side and rolled out of the boat.
Sunny hits the water as he jumps out at 150 miles an hour. Amazingly, he suffers no serious injuries. Sunny knows how close he came to death.
Had I not been out of the boat, I would have been fried with a high line. When the boat exploded, it would have electrocuted me.
But even after this horrifying crash, Sunny was eager to get right back in the cockpit.
3 weeks later, I bought another boat. Again, I said I wasn't blessed with a lot of brains.
Dallas, Texas. Teams of teenage girls from all over the country are competing for the coveted title of National Cheerleading Champions. Among them is the World Cup All-Stars, a squad from New Jersey coached by Elaine Pascali and her daughter Joelle.
It was a very big deal. We always kind of build up to NCAA Nationals in Dallas.
The girls have worked hard to prepare for this event, but according to All-Star Andrea Sorensen, it's worth the effort.
Dallas is the biggest competition of the year. It's the Nationals, kind of like the World Series for baseball.
The All-Stars take to the floor in the qualifying round, performing acrobatic stunts and difficult formations with practiced precision. Cheerleader Blair Teeter executes a flawless double twist into the arms of her teammates. Elaine and Joelle are ecstatic. Then, the 3-minute routine ends with a flurry of backflips. It appears that the All-Stars can expect a winning score. Elaine and Joelle rush to congratulate the girls, but there's big trouble.
Andrea's teeth are going. She got her teeth out.
They weren't like jumping up and down in joy. They were, oh my God, Andrea's teeth, they're out.
Just seconds into the routine, there's a bizarre accident. During her twisting descent, Blair's elbow slams into Andrea's mouth.
I was the back spot, and I got hit with an elbow. It just happened to be in the wrong spot.
Watch closely. The powerful blow knocks out Andrea's front tooth.
The tooth, it kind of looked like a projectile. It just like flew right out. And I don't even know where it landed.
Incredibly, the young all-star summons the courage to keep cheering and never misses a beat.
Claire elbowed her in the double fold down. And she went on and did the whole routine.
Andrea's teammates are devastated by the sight of her injury. Elaine and Joelle rush backstage to find the girl in agony.
Oh my God.
I just looked at her and I said, oh my God.
One tooth is gone and another is broken. Andrea needs immediate medical attention. Sadly, her absence from the team will end any hope of the All-Stars winning a title.
Immediately, Joelle and I decided that was it. We were pulling out. It wasn't worth all of the blood and the tears.
But Andrea has other plans. Remarkably, she announces that she's going to compete in the finals.
So I can't let the team down. Like, we're here to win, and if I wasn't in, they wouldn't compete, and I wouldn't want that for the team.
Andrea's courage in the face of adversity inspires the All-Stars to an impressive finish.
We were third. We're from New Jersey, and that's an accomplishment.
And now, not only does Andrea have her memories of this victorious day, she's also regained her winning smile. Bahia de Aran, Spain. A squad of firefighters is on training maneuvers, practicing mountainside rescue techniques. A hovering chopper lowers a harness to the men below. Fire Chief Joseph Cow and his partner Benjamin Yanez strap themselves in. But as they begin their ascent, something goes wrong. The cable snaps, sending the two helpless firefighters plummeting over 100 feet down the mountain. Every heart-stopping drop is punctuated by a bone-crushing impact. The men slam into the rocky slope. Then they violently careen down the incline, finally coming to a stop. Fellow rescuers race to their side, fearing the worst. Cow and Yanez suffer deep bruises and broken bones. They're badly injured, but they are alive. Hard to believe considering the terrifying plunge that turned these rescuers into victims. Moscow, Russia, home of the most unlucky pop star in the world, Oleg Gazmanov. Watch as the singer is zapped by a powerful jolt of electricity and knocked unconscious. Take another look. Oleg grabs the mic and suddenly gets the shock of his life. Then the Russian chart topper goes down for the count. Oleg survives the electrifying performance, but his bad luck has only just begun. He appears on a live morning talk show to discuss his traumatic experience and other current events. Then, it's the singer's biggest hit yet. Watch again, as a heavy piece of the set falls on Oleg's head. The talk show hosts look on in horror as the wooden wall crashes down on top of the pop star. Without warning, the Ukrainian's cranium is cracked. Oleg is stuck.
Ой-ой-ой. Нет? Не сильно? Ударила? Ударила. Да. Да, это да. Нужно кого-то позвать. Господа, помогите, а мы сейчас посмотрим рекламу.
Да.
Adding insult to injury, Oleg requires 11 stitches to close his wounds. Oleg Gazmanov, Russia's unluckiest pop singer, is living proof that if a live wire doesn't get you, live television will.
Ой-ой-ой.
Coming up, a sprint car rockets off the track and sends an innocent bystander crashing to the ground. Plus, an angry store owner fights back against crime with a liquor bottle. Then later, this flamenco dancer has fire in her soul and in her hair. When the world's most amazing videos returns.
Killer bees have terrorized South America for years. Watch as these Brazilian businessmen are viciously attacked. But the bees have traveled north, and now they're here in our own backyard. Tucson, Arizona. Stephen Buckman is a researcher who specializes in killer bees.
This is where we keep our bad bees.
He works closely with the deadly insects in an effort to better understand their savage fury. A few moments after entering this compound, Stephen is surrounded by the angry swarm.
If I wasn't in this bee suit, I'd have been stung 200-300 times already. And for an adult, a healthy adult person, about 300 stings is all it takes.
Corpus Christi, Texas. A 911 operator receives this frantic call.
I'm being attacked by killer bees. You're being attacked by killer bees. I'm being attacked by killer bees.
The plea for help comes from Chris Graves.
The bees were so loud. The bees were in my mouth. They were going in my ears, going up my nose. They were just attacking me. They were trying, I guess you could say, to make a hive out of me.
A victim passed out. Okay, sir, I'm looking for the fire department. Okay, I'm looking for the fire department. Hold on. Stay on the line. Stay on the line.
The bees repeatedly force their stingers into Chris and inject him with their venom. Before rescuers reach him, Chris is stung more than 1,000 times.
The only way that I did survive is that I was healthy. I was young and healthy. And one reason I think I survived was also God was in my favor.
Everything that's happened to him has made him a stronger person, and as well as made me realize that, you know, life can be snuffed out in just a second.
Chris survives his attack, but the killer bees are still heading north. Where they'll strike next is anyone's guess. Toronto, Canada. As the owner of this convenience store closes for the night, 2 last-minute customers arrive. But these men aren't there to buy anything. They've come to rob the place. As one of them pays for a candy bar, he grabs the clerk. The stunned shopkeeper pulls his arm free from the robber's grasp. But then, the second man jumps on him. Suddenly, another customer walks in. But as soon as he spots the violent struggle, he retreats. His abrupt appearance startles one of the thieves, causing him to run out of the store. Now it's one-on-one. The other robber tries to leave too. But the owner of the store isn't about to let that happen.
There's no way that they're going to take his money, what he earned, and he was going to fight no matter what to prevent them from taking his livelihood.
The shopkeeper is only half the criminal's size, but he puts up a tremendous fight. When the thief tries to push him out of the way, the owner grabs a weapon, a bottle of wine. The clerk swings the Chardonnay, keeping the robber at bay. Meanwhile, a car pulls up outside. At the wheel is Donald Bleeker, an off-duty officer.
I stopped my car and I looked into the store and I could see that the store owner was wrestling with someone.
As Bleeker calls for backup, the owner lands a series of blows. Then he grabs the robber by the shirt and drags him into the candy aisle. Bleeker runs to the door to size up the situation. The officer realizes he can't wait for help to arrive. So even though he's unarmed, he jumps into the fray.
In a command voice, I told the suspect that he was under arrest, get down on the floor, not to move.
The officer asks the owner to relax, but the furious man lashes out with one final blow. Other officers arrive and take the dazed suspect into custody. The store owner wins his battle, but police believe he may have gone too far.
On one hand, I'd like to say he did a great job. On the other hand, I can't really condone this behavior because somebody could get hurt or killed.
It's only money. You can always make more money. You can't make yourself alive again if you're killed.
And now for the viewer video of the week, sent to us by Janet Maxwell of Phoenix, Arizona.
A sprint car race is underway at the Canyon Speedway. But as the cars come around the fourth turn, one racer careens out of control, causing a massive pileup. Then, an even bigger disaster. Watch again. Driver Fred Bryan, going at full throttle, clips the wheel of another car. Suddenly, he's airborne. 1,500 pounds of man and metal crash through the protective fence and head straight for flagman Dan Klein, knocking him off the platform.
It was almost slow motion. You know that it's bad and it's coming, and what do you do?
The cartwheeling vehicle misses Dan's head by less than 2 feet.
And the only thing I could really do from where I was standing was just lean back and hope he missed me, and he did.
Incredibly, even on his back, Dan continues to do his job, waving the red flag to stop the race.
And you don't want him coming around turn 3 and 4 at 100 miles an hour and plowing into a bunch of cars that are just sitting there.
Dan is amazed that both he and driver Fred Bryan are still alive.
Thank God was watching over not only me, but the driver of the car and the fans that were there.
An ambulance arrives, and Fred is carefully placed on a stretcher and taken to a hospital.
I was really lucky that night to just get away with the least amount of injuries that I had, and I really feel fortunate.
Watching from the stands, Fred's wife feared the worst.
It was just an unbelievable sight, and it was in slow motion. I felt like I was in a tunnel, and I couldn't breathe.
Looking at the crash again, it's a miracle that everyone survives this night of terror at the track.
Next up, a racehorse crashes to the ground, setting off a horrifying chain reaction. Plus, a pilot panics when his landing gear jams. Can the ground crew reach him in time? Then later, a mysterious cloud smothers a city, leaving terrified residents gasping for air. When the world's most amazing videos continues.
Salem, Massachusetts. An armed robbery suspect has crashed his car in this quiet neighborhood. As he fled from the police, the fugitive stormed inside the home of Paul Hardy, who was making breakfast for his twin boys.
Next thing you know, I heard glass shattering, and it was right in my kitchen, and I looked up to see a masked gunman pointing the gun at me and my children.
But what the suspect doesn't know is that Paul is a corrections officer, trained to handle dangerous criminals.
Listen, you don't want to be an object, you want to be a person. So I was saying, well, my name's Paul, these are my sons, Kevin and Kyle.
Paul's wife, Gail, is at work when she learns that her family has been taken hostage. She immediately rushes home.
I wasn't assured that they were okay at that point because I didn't get to talk to them.
Police surround the house, but their efforts are hampered by a crowd of local news stations broadcasting the standoff. This allows the fugitive, Chad Austin, to watch their every move on live TV.
This gave the suspect, Chad Austin, real-time information about what he was up against outside. It put us at a disadvantage.
Inside the house, Paul makes a desperate plea to save the lives of his children.
I was scared myself, but I was more scared for the kids. You know, they were only 4 at the time.
Finally, he convinces the gunman to release the 2 boys. As the fugitive talks to police on the phone, Paul tries to push one of his sons out the front door. But the frightened child wraps his arms around his father's neck, refusing to go. Then, Paul tries to get the children to leave through the garage, but the boys are terrified. Suddenly, Kyle rushes back to his father. Kevin runs toward the police and is whisked to safety. But Paul is forced to make a gut-wrenching choice with Kyle.
The hardest thing I had to do in my life was I had to take my son, put him outside, push him out, and close the garage door on him. And he's pulling up, and I can feel the door trying to come up, and he's kicking and banging on the door, and it just ripped my heart out.
Police quickly move in and carry the child away. The boys are safely returned to their mother. But now, Gail fears for her husband's life. Police officers persuade the gunman to allow the couple to speak on the phone. Gail chokes back tears, trying to remain strong for her husband.
They're fine. They're just scared.
Okay.
There's a lot of people.
They're all right now?
They're fine. Did they not want to come out?
Yeah, they didn't want to come out.
Okay.
Okay.
I love you.
That was the hardest thing, is to show no emotion on the telephone so he wouldn't be worried about me.
Now Paul is inside the house, facing down the gunman, alone.
Now on my 4.5 hours of frustration, now here we go. Now it's just me and you, and let's see who wins.
Paul goes on the attack, stunning the suspect with a blow to the head. Then he knocks out the window screen and tries to escape. But the fugitive grabs him from behind. Both men furiously battle for control of the gun.
At that point, it was a wrestling match. I mean, I was headbutting him. He was, yelling at me, he's gonna kill me. I'm yelling at him.
Officers know this is their only chance. They storm through the back of the house. Then an explosion erupts from within.
I threw the flashbang grenade into the living room, and that did the trick.
The explosive device disorients the two men long enough for police to grab the gunman. Paul stumbles for the window and leaps out onto the lawn. He lies motionless as a SWAT officer rushes to his side. Seconds later, he is pulled to safety. Paul and Gail are reunited, and the family's nightmare is finally over.
We just kind of ran together and just started hugging each other.
The couple was on hand when the verdict was read. Chad Austin was charged with several felony counts, including attempted murder and kidnapping.
Defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
The Hardy home is safe once again, thanks to the bravery of a father who put his life on the line to save his family.
My life was at stake for me, and his life in prison was on stake for him. So it was like, who's gonna win? And the better man won.
East Moline, Illinois. It's the 7th harness race at Quad City Downs.
They're heading for the final bend, under urging Ideal Neal with a short lead. Dream of victory, trying to battle back.
Keep an eye on Ideal Neal, driven by Scott Robbins. Coming out of the final turn, Scott is about to pull ahead, but then, disaster. His horse goes down.
Ideal Neal has fallen. We do have quite a spill at the head of the stretch down there.
Let's take another look. Ideal Neal loses his footing and falls, causing a massive pileup. The violent chain reaction launches 5 men and their horses onto the track. One carriage barrels over Scott's back.
I felt something go over me, which ended up being a race bike wheel, because I had the mark over my back. I mean, I could feel horses. I had some hoof marks on my helmet.
But Scott is better off than fellow driver Bill Lappy. He was catapulted from his sulky and slammed into the guardrail. Then he's dragged by his horse until he finally breaks free from the stirrup.
I think I got drugged like 30 or 40 foot that way by 1 foot, and then I remember thinking, I hope something gives here.
Bill's horse, Purple Gangster, goes on to finish 3rd without him. Remarkably, all the men and their horses suffer only minor injuries. Even more incredibly, Scott, whose horse started the pileup, went on to race again that very same day.
Now, an amazing video classic.
St. Augustine, Florida. A small plane is in big trouble. Pilot Scott Gordon makes an emergency call to the airport control tower. The landing gear under the right wing of his Piper Arrow is jammed and won't come down. Scott is advised to circle over the runway so mechanic Joe Lippo can evaluate the problem.
Scott flew by the terminal, and the only thing we could really determine was the wheel was coming out of the well about 4 inches and stopping, wouldn't come any further.
The plane is running dangerously low on fuel, and there's no time to waste. Fire trucks and ambulances are standing by as operations manager Jim Mosier quickly assembles a team of experts to devise a rescue plan.
Jim came up with the idea to pull a trailer behind the truck, and we were going to drive down the runway and maybe set that wing on that trailer.
I'm just going to go as fast as I can go, and you just see what it looks like to you, okay? Okay, good.
The plan is to tow the trailer down the runway at 90 miles an hour. Scott will attempt to land on his 2 good wheels while resting his right wing on the back of the speeding flatbed. The maneuver is technically possible, but extremely hazardous.
It took about 90 miles an hour because that's what it took to keep that airplane in the air. Anything less than that, it doesn't want to fly.
Scott flies into position, and Jim floors the truck. But it's not going fast enough. If Scott tries to land at this slow speed, the plane will crash. At the last second, he aborts the landing. Then, with time running out, the men are forced to try an even more daring strategy. First, they borrow a turbocharged sedan. Then, Joe plans to reach through the sunroof and pull down the disabled landing gear. If this doesn't work, all hope is lost.
Worst case scenario there is the airplane coming down on top of the car, and I would be the nail, he'd be the hammer.
Now, the plane is running only on fumes. Joe knows this is his last chance to save Scott. Amazingly, he does it. Watch again. As Joe grabs for the landing gear, the plane lifts inches out of his reach, but Scott makes a quick adjustment.
And you could hear the throttle come off, and he dropped about 8 inches, just enough to get my hand around the top of the wheel. And I gave it one little tug, it didn't want to come, and then I put everything into it I had, and it snapped loose and came down.
Having accomplished this seemingly impossible mission, Scott is able to make a safe landing, and not a moment too soon.
It's a first for me, but it's better than tearing up the belly of the airplane, so it worked, and everything turned out fine.
Scott owes his life to a resourceful ground crew that was willing to lend a helping hand.
Up next, a dangerous high-speed chase ends with a terrifying plunge. Plus, a death-defying stunt goes bad when a daredevil gets tangled in his own parachute. Then later, an enormous explosion blows a Navy destroyer out of the water when the world's most amazing videos returns.
Houston, Texas. Police are in hot pursuit of 2 men wanted for home invasion. They broke into this house, intent on stealing thousands of dollars worth of electronic equipment and appliances. Now they're racing down the freeway at speeds topping 100 miles an hour. They leave the patrol cars behind. Only news and police choppers are able to keep up. They think they're getting away, but their luck's about to change. Watch again. The suspect narrowly misses 2 cars and skids onto the overpass. Then he rams head-on into the car driven by Beverly Stubbs.
The first minute I saw something coming at me, I realized it was this car and that it wasn't going to be able to make that turn without hitting me.
The man in the passenger seat makes a run for it. And then he does something unbelievable. The fugitive jumps the guardrail, then dangles 30 feet above the concrete embankment. Watching in disbelief from his news chopper is pilot Rod Hooks.
The first thing I thought of when I saw him hanging there is this guy really wants to get away pretty bad.
As a patrol car approaches, the man makes a shocking choice. He lets go. The suspect slams into the embankment and rolls to the ground. But then he's right back on his feet.
It amazed me in that, number one, he would take a jump like that, and number two, he didn't get hurt bad.
Moments later, the outlaw finally surrenders to a police chopper in a nearby field.
That was a very large open field, and of course, you can't outrun a helicopter.
Beverly Stubbs is still shaken from her ordeal.
You never know when you get up in the morning what's going to happen to you. If I had had my door open or windows open, one of those guys might have jumped in the car out of just fear, or might have held me as a hostage.
To this day, even the veteran chopper pilot is amazed that the desperate man would risk his own life to get away.
The only thing I can figure is he didn't know how much of a drop he had, and he just grabbed a hole, flipped himself over, threw his body over the top, and said, "Oh my gosh, I got a long drop here."
Pretoria, South Africa. A 29-story building has erupted into a towering inferno. Firefighters and equipment have responded quickly. The fire started on the 19th floor and has spread upward, forcing terrified office workers to the roof. Police helicopters are able to land on top of the building and bring some of the frightened occupants to safety. More than 50 people are rescued. It appears that the evacuation is going smoothly, but suddenly, 4 people are spotted trapped on a 19th floor ledge. A dentist, his 2 assistants, and a female patient take refuge outside to escape the dense smoke filling the office. The toxic cloud threatens to explode through the glass at any moment. An Air Force chopper is called to the scene. The pilot struggles to keep the helicopter steady as a rescuer is lowered on a cable. Strong winds nearly slam the man into the building. But the stranded victims help pull him onto the ledge. The rescuer quickly straps one woman into the harness. Then they are hoisted up to the chopper. But suddenly, the building begins to fall apart. Huge chunks of debris crash to the pavement. Now the rescuers make a crucial decision. Since there's not enough time for each person to be lifted to safety, all 3 must get off the ledge at once. The cable reappears, but this time without a rescuer. Now they are on their own. The woman and 2 men secure themselves into the harnesses. And then they take a death-defying leap of faith. As they are slowly pulled up, the turbulent wind threatens to smash them into the side of the building. They clear the structure. Now they hang on for dear life as the force of the rotor blades sends them into a dizzying spin. Finally, they are safely aboard. Moments later, the entire 19th floor is engulfed in flames.
The most terrifying moment was leaping from that ledge. I'd say that was relatively difficult in the sense that we didn't know how far we were going to fall.
I thought, oh, today I could have died, but I'm sure a God was looking after us this stage.
Thanks to the brave actions of the rescue team, these 4 people were able to escape with their lives. Kent, England. 3 men dressed in gorilla costumes board a twin-engine plane. These experienced skydivers are about to perform a publicity stunt to call attention to the plight of endangered gorillas. Steve Treble recalls the light-hearted anticipation of the event.
We're sitting in the aircraft, being jovial and happy, but also thinking about the jump ahead, checking our vision and other parts of our equipment to make sure everything is okay. But we were all boisterous and happy, fairly routine.
The plane climbs to an altitude of 4,000 feet. Then the men jump. They immediately open their parachutes. Their plan is to float back to Earth in a stacking formation, one on top of the other. Steve and his jumping partner rendezvous in midair, waiting for the 3rd man to join them. But suddenly there's trouble. The 3rd jumper slams into Steve, causing their parachutes to tangle. The other 2 men cut their canopies loose and deploy their backup chutes. But Steve is helplessly caught upside down in the parachutes. Then more trouble. Steve's reserve chute won't fully open. Now he's plummeting to the ground, screaming in terror.
My whole life just went by. And then I also saw an image of my wife. And wherever I was spinning, she was there, and I just started to scream. I honestly thought that was it, I was dead.
Spectators below can do nothing to help Steve as he plunges from the sky. But one man shouts out, desperately urging him to lift his head. Steve slams into the ground with ferocious force. Watch again. Steve's reserve chute malfunctions and sends him on a deadly downward spiral. He crashes violently into the field. Onlookers rush to Steve's motionless body. Incredibly, he's alive.
The one thing that did come to the top of my mind was, am I paralyzed? And I wiggled my toes and they moved, and I didn't give a damn after that.
It's hard to imagine, but Steve suffers no broken bones as a result of his terrifying fall. He believes that had it not been for the thick padding of his gorilla suit, this high-flying protest would have been his last.
Coming up, a city is paralyzed when a mysterious cloud plunges it into darkness. Plus, it's terror on the high seas when a 2,000-ton destroyer is blasted sky high. And a dance routine comes to a fiery halt when a woman's hair is set ablaze. When the world's most amazing videos continues.
Barcelona, Spain. Dance school director Rosalia Mulero is holding a recital to showcase her best flamenco students. She's about to steal the show, but for all the wrong reasons. Rosalia and her son Antonio are performing the Dance of Fire. The daring number calls for her to hold a flaming tray of burning alcohol over her head. Rosalia begins her fiery routine, when suddenly the blazing liquid spills onto her head, exploding in 1,000-degree flames. Let's watch again. As Rosalia kicks her leg high into the air, the tray tips, engulfing her hair and face in a ferocious fireball. Just when it appears she'll be burned alive, her son Antonio moves in to save her. Take another look. The tray was supposed to have been lined with cotton to prevent the burning alcohol from spilling. But it wasn't. It's a mistake that almost proves fatal for Rosalia.
I did not check the tray, and when I took it, the alcohol was running loose without any cotton. The moment I lifted it over my head, the alcohol spilled, setting my head on fire.
Once she is pulled off the stage, spectators stomp out the remaining flames. Rosalia says she owes her life to the bravery of her son Antonio.
I consider myself very fortunate because when I was in flames, everybody ran away scared except for Antonio. His quick reaction saved my face and everything else from getting burnt worse than it did.
Despite her fiery brush with death, Rosalia claims her burning passion for the flamenco will never be extinguished. Melbourne, Australia. It's a hot summer day, 110 degrees and climbing. Thousands of people pack the beach. But their day of fun in the sun is about to take a dark and terrifying turn. Suddenly, a massive cloud engulfs the city.
Just about 3 o'clock, a huge cloud just enveloped the whole area. And all of a sudden, we were in practical darkness.
Traffic slows to a crawl, and planes are stranded in the sky as visibility drops to zero. Frightened citizens panic, choking and gasping for air as they struggle to get indoors.
I think some people did think that perhaps it was the end of the world.
The suffocating cloud rolls into the city at 50 miles an hour. Melbourne is plunged into darkness. But what looks otherworldly turns out to be a dust storm. The devastating natural disaster is the result of a severe drought. In the outback, miles of dry land have become airborne. The blanket of red earth turns the crowded downtown into a swirling dust bowl. Then, as quickly as it appears, the cloud is gone. But the citizens of Melbourne will never forget the 140,000 tons of dust that turned a bright sunny day into the city's darkest hour. "70 miles off the coast of Australia, the most advanced submarine in the Royal Australian Navy is on battle maneuvers. Assisting in this exercise is a Navy destroyer, which can carry as many as 207 crewmen. The sub dives to attack depth. All men are ordered to battle stations. Then, an enormous blast rips through the 2,000-ton battleship. The smoke clears, revealing that the destroyer has been blasted in two. But there are no casualties, because no one is aboard the giant naval craft. This is a torpedo launch test, and the target is a 30-year-old decommissioned ship. The destruction, however, is real. Let's watch again as the destroyer's 4 million-pound steel hull is blown out of the water. Smoke erupts from the center of the ship. Shockwaves reduce the boat's midsection to a floating pile of debris. The ragged, twisted metal proves the lethal power of this modern war machine.